Hi, I'm Kiki.
And I'm Kemi.
And you're listening to
Your Advisors Will See You Now, a podcast that will help you to figure out all of your options for life after high school.
Hey everyone, it's Kiki and Kemi. Thank you so much for joining Your Advisors Will See You Now. This is episode 5. We are trucking along with our podcast. Thanks so much for everyone who has joined so far. Tell all your friends, anybody you know, tell them about it. But so last week we talked about how to apply to college, like the application process for applying to colleges. But this week we're going to kind of jump into like another kind of the opposite side. Maybe if you're not wanting to apply to college, maybe college is not for you right now. If you are unsure if you even want to go to college, this week Kemi and I are going to talk about alternatives and other options outside of going to college. So we're going to go through a list, but a pretty extensive list of other opportunities that are out there for students who, again, just aren't looking at college at the moment. I know Kemi's really excited about this episode, as am I, but Kemi's really excited about it. So I'm going to let Kemi jump right in with some alternatives to going to a 4-year college.
Yeah, and I think I should probably preference why I'm excited, because people are probably like, well, you got a master's in higher ed. Why do I like other options? Well, the reason why, I love higher education. I wish that everybody could somehow receive a higher education for free, but that's just not how it is for us in the States, you know.
Mm-hmm.
But I do believe that a certain level of education is power and opportunity. But there are other ways to get different opportunities and to be financially set. So I just want to review some of those as well, because we're just so used to and just wired that, okay, we have to follow the step plan. You get out of college, you go to high school, you get to college, you get a job. And that equation doesn't necessarily equate to success necessarily. So there are other things to consider and other different paths. There are different paths, there are different ways. And then also we just want to kind of let other people know, like, because some people, one, cannot afford a higher education. So we want to provide this as a resource for people who want to get some kind of education or a certification, or get into a career field where they can get paid well and have financial freedom. And we also want to discuss about different options, because some people are just, I'll be 100%, are not fit for college or don't want to go to college. If you have a kid who they've been going to school for a long time, but you know that they don't like even showing up for gym class, they're not even showing up for lunch, then you know that maybe college is not the next step. And it's such a big bill, it's such a big fee that you don't want to play around with that, because essentially, even if you're signing your name on the loan, that's tied on your name. So that's debt being tied to your name too. So you don't want to play with that game. So, and then another kind of thing to think about as well is, let's say you're kind of late to the game. Let's say it's senior year and you kind of weren't really thinking about like the next step, and you're not even sure what to do next. Let's say maybe taking a year off for you to decide might be beneficial for you. Don't jump the gun and just say, oh my goodness, all my friends are going to college. I'm not even sure if I want to go to college, but everybody's going, I'm going to do it. Do not do that. Don't follow the crowd. And I'm going to share some numbers with you as to why not to do that. Okay. So I pulled this off of collegedata.com, and it's the average college tuition and fees. So for the 2020 to 2021 academic year, the average price of tuition and fees came to $37,650 at private colleges. The average tuition for public colleges for students that are in-state, so let's say, in-state, so if you live in the state and you're going to their public college, the average was around $10,560. Now, for so if you were an out-of-state student, an out-of-state resident, so for example, if you lived in Delaware and then you wanted to go to school in Connecticut, the average price of college tuition would be $27,020. And here's a wake-up call. That's for 1 year, people. That's for one academic year. Okay? So that's a lot. That's a lot to figure out.
Sure is.
That's a lot of tuition. Okay. Um, and then like usually essentially people we like to think of, okay, there's just tuition to pay for. No, there's also additional fees that will show up on your bill. So there'll also be, maybe there's a parking fee, maybe there's a lab fee that's going to show up, maybe there's a student activity fee that's going to be placed on your bill. And even with that, you're like, oh, okay, I see my bill from the bursar, I see all this laid out. There's also other fees on top of that that you don't think about. If you are going to live in a residence hall, that's a big fee as well. You're paying to live in your dormitory. That's a big expense. And
It is.
yeah, and usually when you live in a dormitory, they're gonna tack on a meal plan. So now you're
Mm-hmm.
also paying for a meal plan on top of that. So the average that I gave you right there was just for tuition and fees. It wasn't including, I don't believe that was including the dorms or the meal plan. Another thing to consider is, okay, your price for your books. I literally had this conversation with 3 different students 2 weeks ago when classes started. And they came to me and they said, I don't understand why my professor is making me pay for this online platform. It's
Mm.
$130. And I said, okay, well, for certain classes, you have textbooks, but for
Mm-hmm.
some teachers, they'll use an online platform and it kind of serves as your workbook, but it's electronic.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, this is an essential part of your curriculum. If you're going to pass the class, you need to pay for it. They're like, well, that's
Right.
really expensive. And I'm like, that's honestly the summation of like your textbook per class. And I'm
Mm-hmm.
not gonna lie to you, textbooks are very expensive. Some textbooks are at least $100. Some additional classes you may have to pay for like a $75 certification online or another online platform. So these are other things to keep in mind that are just
Right.
external expenses. And then also, if you're gonna go hang out with friends and maybe you want to go eat off campus, those are things to keep in mind too.
Mm-hmm.
Another major expense that I didn't factor in was I was an out of state student, so I went to school in North Carolina from New England, and another major expense that I didn't think of was airplane tickets. So there
Mm-hmm.
are more fees than you think when it
Yes.
comes to going
True.
to college. So you need to weigh this into your options. And I'm not saying this to scare you or to scare anybody, because there are certain careers that are in higher ed that you need to go to college for. You need to.
Right.
But this is so you are able to see the full picture, and that when you graduate, you're able to say, okay, I out of all this information I was given, I know for myself, I made the best decision for myself. I know where I stand financially, and I know that I'm in a good spot now compared to where I could have been before. So that's
Mm-hmm.
why, again, why we have this podcast, why we're giving you this resource, so you can get all this information before you to make your big decision. Um,
Absolutely.
yeah. So now let's jump into a couple of other options other than college. So these are still kind of colleges, they're still institutions. So there are things called technical schools or vocational schools. So essentially, these schools will teach you a specific kind of trade skill. So it's different because when you go to college, usually you have to complete some sort of general elective, like an English class or a math class. You don't necessarily have to do that if you're going to a vocational school or a trade school. You're going to
Mm-hmm.
go there and learn what you need to learn for the specific trade that you're going to do. Um, and then essentially, it's just a school people learn how to do the job that requires specific skills. So I used to work at a technical college, and the main focus was you were learning how to work on automobiles, cars, diesel engines. So when you think of diesel, you think of just like the big cars, you think of trucks, but it also is there's tractors. Those are other big things that require diesel.
Mm-hmm.
And then there's even specializations. So some students specialized in like Mercedes Benz or Audi
Mm-hmm.
or whatever have you. So this was a different kind of school that specifically focused on working on cars. Um, so that's one option that someone could look into. If you know there's a specific kind of trade skill that you're looking for, you can try to look for those schools. Um, a list of different kind of vocational school options would be, for example, medical assisting, dental assisting, cosmetology, medical coding, pharmacy technician, nursing assistant, massage therapy. So
Mm-hmm.
those are different schools that you could look into to kind of learn the skills of the trade. I will also say that even though there are schools for these, still do your background information to see if you even need to necessarily go to these schools to do that. So, what I mean is, one of my good friends, he went to college, he ended up graduating, and then I think he took some courses in a community college to work on cars. And he said, "Boo me," because I went kind of
For real.
full circle. I could have saved so much more money.
Yeah.
And even when you look at like sort of like the certifications for working on cars, I believe it's been a while since I worked at this technical school, but it was like called a ASC. So you have to complete these certain certifications. So essentially, if you have a hookup where, let's say, your father owns a car shop and you've been working on cars since you were a kid and you've essentially been working under your father for the apprenticeship part of it, you could essentially, if you're really good, you could even think about taking these ASC certifications. And if you pass and you get that, and that's mostly what people want to see. They want to say that you're certified, you know how to work on a car.
Hmm.
But you don't necessarily need a degree from an institution saying that. It's just a certification process. So
Hmm.
I would say look into different trade schools to see if you need to go to a school or if it's just certifications that they're prepping you for. If you're a person that you love cars but you don't have an opportunity to apprentice under somebody or work under somebody, then consider going to one of these schools. Usually, some of them are more affordable, and also some of these technical schools have a quicker. Most of them have a quicker turnaround. So the school that I worked at, a person could start in the fall and then literally graduate by next fall and be ready to work in the career field. So if you think
Hmm.
that
Cool.
that's yeah, I'm like, you think that's your passion and you want to get out really quickly, you don't feel like going to school for 4 years, that's an option for you. Know yourself, know what you want to do, know what you think you'll work best in or you'll thrive best in. So that's an option. Look
Hmm.
at the different trades out there. I think Kiki, you were talking about CDL earlier too. You want to talk about that?
Hmm. Yeah. Well, I was just talking. I guess it's kind of on the same track, but Kemi and I were just talking about some schools or just local programs may offer something called like accelerated career training or something in that realm, but it could be for CDL, which is, this, well, to become a truck driver, or if you want to become a nurse or phlebotomy, something in healthcare or something again like a trade, but they are accelerated programs. So I know where I work, these are programs for maybe people who are underemployed or unemployed. And they essentially, I believe they kind of pay for you to go to school and to get certified so you can go out into the workforce and be successful in that skill. But truck driving specifically is huge. I mean, I see trucks every day. I live in an area where close to like a lot of like plants and factories or warehouses, I should say. I see trucks every day. I see men on trucks. I see women on trucks. I see people who
Hmm.
look very young who should not be driving trucks on trucks. So like, but it's like sorry, hit the mic. Everyone can have the opportunity to drive a truck if you get certified to do that. And there are pros and cons. You may have to be going across the country to drive trucks, but the pros probably outweigh the cons of it. So
Mm.
there are just, certain programs that can get you certified in things pretty quickly in way less than 4 years, way less than 2 years, a lot of times. So definitely look into those things as well.
Hmm. Yeah, totally. Do you kind of want to talk about the more the community college, like 2 year degree, like that kind of pathway, and how that can kind of segue into things?
I would love to. Um,
Well, thank you.
so, oh, no, I currently work at a community college, so this is what I do every day. Stop me if I'm talking too much, but I'll try and keep it. I'll try and keep it brief.
Go for
But
it, girl. Bless us with your
um,
knowledge.
I
Go
will
for it.
I will try. So Kemi talked. She started off talking about technical or vocational schools, where they don't always, or a lot of times, you're just going in learning a specific trade, so you can go out and work on that in that one field. With a community college, you're typically, or I would say, the highest degree that you can attain is an associate degree. So when you think of degrees, undergraduate degrees, there's like associate's degrees and there's bachelor's degrees. An associate's degree is the step before some students want to attain a bachelor's. But those associate degrees are going to require some level of general education. So things like English classes, math, social sciences, humanities, any electives that you may need just for your degree. So I will kind of talk about the two types. I know, especially for where I currently work, but in general, two types of associate's degree that you can get. So there's one pathway you can take, which is an associate in applied science. So this may be more closely related to a trade or a vocation. So again, there are going to be levels of general education requirements. Um, which may amount to 5 or 6 classes that you need for your general education, but you can get into your major elective or your major requirements. So if you're going to be, going to give an example, if you want to be a nurse or a registered nurse, you of course need to take English, math, social sciences. You need all of that to prepare for your clinician or clinical classes to become a nurse. So your gen eds are going to be way less than what you're going to be taking for clinicals or your nursing specific classes. So that's an applied science. An applied science degree is typically for a student that wants to go right into the workforce after they graduate with their associate's degree. So your main intent is not to get a bachelor's. That may be an option. You kind of have to talk to your advisor at said school to see if your associate applied science degree even transfers to a 4 year school, because it's not always the case that you'll transfer every credit. If you're a student that kind of, as Kimmy and I have talked about, like 4 year schools a lot, maybe you're not ready to go to a 4 year school yet, but you know you want to at some point. Maybe it's not ready to leave home yet, or it's not affordable, as we mentioned, to go live on campus at the moment, or just you want to just develop a little bit more as a person, you may want to start at a community college. And that would be what we would consider like a transfer degree. So those are students that are coming to a community college to really only complete general education courses.
Mhm.
When you think about a 4 year degree, there's general education classes and then classes for your major. So just like for me, when I went to college, I majored in political science. My first couple of years were just gen eds and honestly just figuring out what I want to do
Mhm.
with it, but for a degree. Um, but it's like your general education classes, it's any electives you need to take, things like that. And probably after, I think after like the first couple of years, my first 2 years, then I got into my major classes for political science. So if you're coming to a community college, you can just do your gen eds so you can transfer those general education classes to a 4 year school. Again, you have to talk, to your advisor, whatever state you're in, and
Mhm.
figure out how a transfer degree works,
Yes.
or how an applied science degree works. And I'm speaking for, I live in North Carolina, so I'm speaking for schools in North Carolina. I know what we do here, but I can't really tell you what other schools in other states do. That was a very general overview, though. It's pretty much the same. An applied science degree is for the workforce. A transfer degree is for your transfer to a 4 year school, or preparing you to transfer to a 4 year school. But I also mentioned that community colleges, while the highest degree you can typically attain is an associate's, some community colleges I've heard are offering bachelor's, but that's very little. I don't know
Mhm.
about a lot of them. But you can also get certificates, you can get diplomas. So Kemi
Mhm.
mentioned before, like medical assisting or dental assisting, those are not always degrees. They really just can be a diploma, which a diploma is typically less credit hours than a degree. So that's all you need to be a dental assistant. Then you don't need to get a whole degree. That's perfect. It could take you maybe 16 months to get, to finish that program, take whatever testing you need to take, board exam, and then, you can go find a job in that field. And I'll kind of just differentiate maybe from a trade school. So like Kemi mentioned that you don't really always need gen eds for a trade school. And I mentioned that you do need gen eds for an associate degree. Just know if you're coming to a community college, some of them may require prerequisites. So you may have to like be eligible to take your gen eds to even get to those classes. You know what I'm saying?
Mhm.
So a trade school, you may not have to take developmental math classes,
Yeah, it
or
depends. Yeah.
yeah, it depends. So for a community college, you may have to meet though, that school's prerequisites even to get to your college level courses. So just keep that in mind when you're going in. Again, it varies state by state. I know we have like a set of kind of standards here in North Carolina, but it's different everywhere you go. But please just know, I'm just going to say this because I get a lot of students that I recommend classes to them, or my colleagues and I recommend classes like, why am I taking music appreciation? And I'm like, because it's a general education course that's required. Like, just know that if you go to school, you go to a community college, like, I want to be a criminal justice major. Okay, great. Here's your general education electives that you need to take that you can start out with. And you say, like, well, where are my major classes? Everyone can't start with major classes. So
Yeah.
we're not just giving you classes to be frilly willy. We're giving you classes that you also that you also need for your degree. So just understand like what components make up a degree so that you have an understanding of what you're taking. I would say a huge thing that every school should offer is a course catalog. So that's so you
Mhm.
can see what your degrees offer. We have so many students that come and they're like, I want to major in XYZ. And I'm like, well, we don't have XYZ. Did you look at our website first? Really make sure you do your research, even for a community college,
Google.
to know. Yeah, please. It's really simple. I'm sorry. It's really simple. You can go type in the community college name, what you want to study. If it doesn't come up, they probably don't have it. That was harsh. I'm sorry.
No,
But
I just felt that. I was like, "Oh, I felt that." She's dealt with some people. I felt it. It's okay.
I deal with it every day. But no, like real talk though, like to make everyone's job just easier, even make it easier for yourself. Because we have students that they come and they're like disappointed when I say we don't have that. And I'm like, we just don't have it. I've heard a lot lately, or like some I've heard is like fashion design. I'm like, we don't have that. Did you look and research? So just the same way that Kemi and I have really harped on research for a 4-year school, we're also really wanting you all to research for these alternatives to 4-year school. So if
Mhm.
you walk up to a community college and tell the advisor you want to do XYZ and they don't have XYZ, we're probably going to refer you to our course catalog so you can research what we offer. And then we're next going to refer you to a career counselor probably so you can kind of
Yeah.
go through what your other options could be even within degrees that are offered. I've talked a lot, so
No, I think that was really good. I think that was really
yeah.
good, Kiki. I think that's good. Would you think too, so if you let's say you have a student that they know they want to go to a 4-year college, but they just want to
Hmm.
come to a community college to get their gen eds.
Hmm.
Now, would you suggest that they first talk to the 4-year college first and see what courses will transfer over first? So would you suggest working backwards that way?
It depends. So for students, like for example, for our state, we are like trained to know what our state universities and colleges
Oh, really?
will, yeah, or like we at least know like how to look for transferable credits. I'll also
Okay.
say like so we have 4 transfer pathways for students that know they want to go to a 4-year school.
Okay.
Every credit in there will transfer. So we already off the bat, these classes are going to transfer to our in-state predominantly public institutions.
Okay.
So that's not like really a huge like worry. The thing I would say for students that maybe want to go out of state, and I would guarantee, or I would say for the most part, your advisor in your state at a community college will like us will know what classes transfer to, like I said, in-state colleges. Now, if you're going out of state, that's where it's tricky because we're not trained on that, and every state
It's
has
different.
different, yeah, it has different degree requirements. Courses may not transfer the same way across states, so that's where you definitely want to make sure you've talked to that school that you plan to go to in a
Mhm.
different state to understand what they're going to require or what they'll even take. Sometimes they'll tell you what you can take. Some schools won't tell you till you apply or like until you've applied to the school, turn a transcript in and done all that work.
Mm.
So again, that understanding that everything you do, if you live in XYZ state, but you're going to another state, just know everything may not transfer. That's something we have to talk to students about a lot. Like just being very mindful. Okay, you're starting at a community college here in this state, but you want to go all the way to Oregon. Everything is different. It's different there. So that's where it gets tricky. That's where we don't really like. I know for our team, we don't really know. But I'll say like another benefit of going to like your in-state colleges. Like if you come to community college, they'll like partner with a lot of the larger or like those state public institutions. So like maybe you
Mm-hmm.
complete a transfer degree at your community college, you want to transfer to one of the in-state public colleges, you may get guaranteed, if you complete your transfer degree with a certain GPA, you may get guaranteed admission to a state school. You will have done all your gen eds for the most part. There's a lot of benefits to completing your gen eds at a community college and transferring to an in-state, institution. I know also like for North Carolina, for a lot of a lot of schools make it really easy for advisors to kind of tell students what you need for each major. Or like some schools may have requirements for certain majors to even like apply. So they make it really easy for us. And I would say it's probably the same thing for a lot of other states. They want to just make it very seamless because their largest population of transfer students are probably going to be from community colleges. So
Mm-hmm.
if they can make it as seamless as possible, it makes it easier for the advisors, and it's attainable for students on the websites to see like, oh, this is what I need to transfer to this school for this major. I can do that, and now I know what my degree looks like, what my community college offers, and what my 4-year school will take.
Right. That makes so much sense now. Okay. I was thinking more of because in the past when I've worked with other students, but I've worked with students at like a technical college that were already there in the college,
Mm-hmm.
or when I work with grad students now that they're already there and they might transfer somewhere else. I'm usually like, okay, you have to talk to them, the college first. But that's because if they're already in a 4-year or like in a trade program, then obviously,
Oh yeah.
yeah. So that's why I was wondering if it was the same
Mm-hmm.
thing. But it makes so much sense that the community colleges would be equipped to give that knowledge straight off, because
Right.
that's mostly what you're doing. So that makes a
Mm-hmm.
lot of sense. Awesome,
Mm-hmm.
awesome. What's the next thing we're going to talk about? Military,
Yes.
military.
That's all you.
Well, I, just FYI, I was not in the military.
Oh, she knows. Not by any means, but
Not
she
by
knows about it.
not by any means, okay? So my husband was in the military. It was totally not me, okay? I wish that I was, you know, that I had the mental tenacity for it. But I know that I'd break in like 2 days. So it wouldn't be for me. But
Me
there are
too,
some
girl.
people that, there's some people that they are for the military and they're good for the
Mm-hmm.
military. So for the military, there are different branches. So there's the Army, there's the Navy, there's the Air Force, there's Marines. I feel like I'm also missing another one. And so there's different branches of the military that you can apply to. So some people, if they're not really sure, they want to go to college, but the military seems like something appealing to them, they'll apply and to enter the military. And they'll kind of apply for a branch that they think mostly suits them. So Air Force, my husband was telling me you have to weigh. My husband wanted to do Air Force. And then they were like, oh, bro, you don't you gotta lose weight. He said, all right, well, I guess it's Army it is for me. So he went over to the Army and signed up. And he actually showed me a little tangent. He showed me the video of his base training camp. So they're kind of
Oh.
essentially going through training, and it shows them they're like putting their gas masks on. They go into the gas chamber, and
Yeah.
that's how you can tell if you applied it correctly or not, because if you didn't apply your mask correctly, the mask is going to go in. And then you're in there for a couple of minutes, and then while you're in there, you have to take your gas mask off. So that way you're understanding that if you're gassing other people, you have to understand what that experience is for yourself, and you also have to experience that in case, like God forbid it happens to you. And then so they're in there for a little bit. I would have passed out. And then they open the doors and they're walking out of this like container, flapping their wings to get like the air off of them. And then you just see people going from side to side, throwing up. I was like, oh, honey.
Oh, yeah.
I wouldn't even make it through basic training. I'm gonna tell you that right now. But I tell my husband every day, I'm like, you're amazing, because
it's true.
I'm too fragile. But if you are into that kind of thing, or if you think that might just something that you're potentially interested in serving our country, there's different opportunities there for you. There's Navy if you want to work on the water. I'll definitely have my husband come on when we focus on specific alternative options to college. I'll have him come on so he can give us more insight on it. But there's definitely benefits. So if you're benefits to going into the military, you can get tuition assistance when you get out of the military. You can also get housing assistance as well. So they'll pay for your housing as a specific percentage of your housing while you're in school, if after you get out of the military. I think it's different based on what state you're in, but I'll
Mm-hmm.
definitely have him expand on that a little bit more. So there's benefits such as that, so you can actually get your schooling paid for college if you really feel like that's an option you want to take. They also have other benefits such as he'll be able to give you more specifics, but like home ownership, I think like 0% down if you wanted to get a home. There's USAA, which is like this great banking for veterans, which is absolutely amazing. That helps you like kind of consolidate some of your finance packages for your packaging for your home or insurance. So there are
Mm-hmm.
a lot of good opportunities for that. My cousin-in-law, she's still in the military. I believe she's Army, and she's been in there for almost 30 years now.
Wow. Oh my gosh.
Yeah, and she loves it. So she stayed in there. I have to have Warren come on here and talk about her because he'll when they're talking, they'll drop names like someone was a cadet, someone's what is it, cadet,
Lieutenant,
lieutenant, there was
captain, I don't know.
this captain, this kind of squad, your squad. So when they talk back and forth, it's like they're talking Morse code because I'm not trained.
Because we're
But
civilians. We don't know about
I'm a basic civilian, okay?
that.
But that is an option, and some people love it, and they make that their like career. So that's also an option too. Also, something else we could look into to discuss during another podcast would be military schools because they have those too, which I didn't even
True.
think.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's something we could bring up during that specific episode. But that's an
Mm-hmm.
option. It's military for you to look into. Definitely weigh your options. See if that's for you. You know, see if that's for you. Weigh the pros and cons for that as you would for any other option that's on this list.
Right.
Make sure you find something that's a good fit for you. What else do we have on our list here?
We kind of already talked about, I guess we kind of touched on apprenticeships
Yeah,
a
yes,
little bit,
we
but
did. We did talk about
yeah.
apprentice. Essentially, a lot of apprenticeships are similar to trade schools. There's actually I think it's like an apprenticeship site, and it's for per state too.
Mm-hmm.
So sometimes you can see if you can actually work under someone, so you can get some hands-on training that way as well. So that's an excellent option. Some apprenticeships that some people don't even think about is where's my list over here? Let me see. Some occupations that come with apprenticeships are boiler makers, carpenters, electricians, elevator installers and repairers, installation workers, and mechanical. Now,
Mm-hmm.
here's my 2 cents on this. Whenever so- whenever someone seems to buy a home, that boiler always seems to go out. So I think that's a niche that's needed. So
Yeah, it's true.
so
That's
honestly,
hilarious.
I that might be something I consider. And then random fact too, I remember I was looking an elevator was getting fixed at
Mm-hmm.
one of my old jobs. And I was like, "Oh my goodness, that looks so scary because the elevator is high above him and he's like in there working on it."
Oh, true.
But the pay was good.
Whew.
I was like, "Well, I don't mind being scared for that price." So so that's another option. If that's your thing, look into it.
Mm-hmm.
Weigh your
Mm-hmm.
pros and cons. And I think I've known someone that we knew. They worked on insulation, and my friend's friend, he works on insulation, and they were an apprenticeship for it. They had
Mm-hmm.
people in their family, so they learned under them,
Yeah.
and then they just got that experience, and they were working like right when they got out of high school. And then I was even joking around with a coworker of mine. Her daughter just began freshman year at my college where I work at, and she said her boyfriend is a plumber. And she's like, meanwhile, her boyfriend, who's a plumber, is making much more money than all of us is up in here.
It's true. It's true.
It's so true, you know? So these are other things to look into if you find yourself interested in it. Do some of that
Yeah.
research, and especially if you're a hands-on person. I wish that I would have looked back and did like a deeper dive into that because I do like a lot of hands-on things. I like seeing my effort coming to fruition
Mm-hmm.
for me. So, or even though it's not like instantaneous, but I like seeing the effects. So I feel like that would have been something good for me to look into.
Yeah, no, it's true. Before we go into the last like alternative, I'm gonna go back to community colleges because you're just like making me think of
Yeah, go
people
for it.
I've met. Where you said something like your somebody you work with, her boyfriend, her daughter's boyfriend, who's a plumber, who like it's like legit. Like Kimmy probably does the same thing or thinks about the same thing. I sit down with students who I'm advising who are going to go out and make much more money than I currently am. Because one day we gonna get up there.
We are one
But
day.
one day. But like I just think of this. So there's a degree or a career. It's called non-destructive examination technology, but they're basically the people, or I guess technicians. They're the people that go and examine like aircrafts or spacecrafts. Like, if there any like
Wow.
cracks or disturbances in those aircrafts or spacecrafts, they go out and
Jeff
they
Bezos.
go out. Yeah, exactly. They go out and they like fix those things. I've heard for that specific career, like a lot of the people who were in it are, starting to retire. So there's a lot of like openings in that field. I heard about it, but never really thought about it until I met this lady. At like we had like an etiquette luncheon, and she was telling me that her son, she was like taking her son on a tour of our campus, and she was like, "Oh, this is a cool job, like a cool career." So she was like, "Let me do it too."
Hmm.
And they both graduated with that degree.
Hmm.
And she was saying how like companies were coming and recruiting, like coming to the college and recruiting people for that career.
Oh,
So
wow.
right, and like
So she
if I
didn't have to
remember,
search for a job. The job was coming to her. That's
yeah,
amazing.
exactly. I don't remember. I don't know what, with COVID and everything. I don't know what happened, but I was just like amazed by her, like by the story, how they like went to school together. So of course she's like probably, she's a mother, but he was probably 18, or probably no, maybe like 20 coming out of college. And the salary that I heard, I'm not even kidding, it was something like $90,000 a year.
What?
Right.
I'm
To
going
look
to
at an
community college.
aircraft.
I'm going.
Right. To look at an aircraft. So that's just one example. One of the She was a work study student in our office, who I adore dearly. But her family, her dad, like I guess, owns a construction business, and she like, learned under him, went to school for construction management technology, and she's now like going to get her bachelor's in it.
Wow.
But she got a job. So like our college is building like a huge, like two buildings basically. They're building them at one time. But she is working for the company that is
What?
over it. Yes. It is like so amazing. Like she's not like she's doing construction, I'm sure, but she's really like doing more of the management and like administrative parts of it, what she really wants to do.
I
So
love
that's
it.
just like two, yeah, it's like amazing. So that's just two instances, but it also leads me to say like women in certain fields, like construction. I'm seeing more and more women in construction these days,
Oh, for
or more and
sure.
more women, like, yeah, more and more women in like automotive, or like we talked about truck driving. So if you're a woman in a certain field, or, you know, I'll keep it to that, or like,
Mhm.
a minority in a certain field, there may be more opportunity for you,
Mm.
because companies are definitely trying to diversify these days.
Oh, for sure. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, for
so,
sure.
mm-hmm,
I can even like think of when I worked at my technical college, there were a few women that were taking classes there, and sometimes there's also scholarships if you are a female or a minority. So those are some things that you can look into. But again,
yeah,
Kiki, some of these things are awarded because they want to build more diversity in these places. So I
mm-hmm,
mean that's awesome. If you don't, I think sometimes we can get a little intimidated if we're in a field that maybe someone doesn't look like us, or you know what I mean. But
right.
go for it. If that's your passion, that's what you want to do, go for it.
Right.
Go for it.
Even men, like men in healthcare, I think we like just a
Mhm.
lot of times are like, oh, men are gonna be doctors.
Right.
I always think of that movie, Meet the Parents, where like you've seen it before,
Yeah.
with like Ben Stiller and Robert De Niro, and they're
Yeah.
making fun of him because he's a male nurse.
I
And it's like,
know.
no, like you need male nurses, like
Yes.
men are not just doctors and women are not just nurses. Women can be doctors, obviously, but
Right.
men can also be nurses, or men can be dental hygienists, or
Right.
men can work in paralegal. I'm just naming things, but yeah, look at the stats and like what areas or what careers need more of whatever you are, whoever you are. You know what I'm saying? So
Yeah.
definitely, that's why we're gonna keep saying every time we're gonna talk about do your research because it really is important. It really, really is important. As you're choosing your career, what you're passionate about too.
Yeah, for sure. And going
Um,
into,
yeah.
you want to go
Mhm.
into our last point?
You go ahead, Kami.
Okay. So our last point is a gap year. So essentially, what a gap
Mhm.
year is you're literally taking a year off of high school to kind of figure things out. So there's different ways to kind of tackle a gap year. One, you could just take that year off, and maybe you're working. So maybe you're working at a job. It could be like your regular job that you're working after school, and now you're working full time, and you're still trying to figure out if you want to go to college or what your next step wants to be. Honestly, if you're at that late stage in your senior year and you're really not sure if you want to go to college, if it's not going to be a right fit for you, and you want more time to make a plan for your life, take a gap year. Don't
Mhm.
don't feel as though because all your friends are going to college, everybody else is doing it, that you need to go. Because I'm not gonna lie to you, a lot of them are going to college, and some of them might not even know what they want to do. You know.
Exactly. Mhm.
And at the end of the day, you're gonna have to be the one that's gonna foot the bill for your education. So if you really want to make sure you know what you're gonna do next, take a gap year, but do something in that gap year as well. Don't, just be chilling at home eating chips. Do your research, be working, maybe see if you're able to get your hands on like an internship or volunteer now that you're not in school, to get some experience in there. So that would be very, very valuable to see if you can get like some kind of internship in a career you're thinking of, or just to get a better idea of, okay, yeah, this is a career I could see myself working in.
Mhm.
In that gap year, what some other people do is some people also travel.
Mhm.
There was a program. There are actually some programs that are catered to gap years as well.
Yes. Wait,
Yeah.
wasn't there one that you talked about like a while ago that we were talking about? Remember? Something
Which
I feel
one?
like you told me. It was like traveling. Was it you telling me that?
So there was one at my other job. So there was like these high schoolers that came in, and they were having them work on cars and stuff like that. And I was talking to one of them at the front desk, and they were saying like they were in a gap year program. I was like, "Oh, how you guys liking it?" And
Mhm.
this one was probably an expensive one, so I don't know the name, but if you got the money, you want to do it, I guess do it. But this gap year program essentially had these students go abroad, then to different states doing different jobs. So they were in Spain at one point, I think, doing something
Mhm.
with theater. Then they came to us in New England. They were working on cars, and then they went to several other places and just had different perspectives on things. And then they had to do like a presentation at the end to kind of sift and understand themselves and what they might see themselves doing next. So there are some programs out there. Let's say even if you want to travel, there's one place called EF College. EF,
Yes, that was it. I remember.
yeah, EF
Mhm.
College. I looked into that at one point because I think I got to research the years again. I'm not sure if you have to be at least like maybe 19, 20 or something like that. And then it cuts off at another age, like before 30. And you can literally travel. There's different trips that they plan, either Ireland, Spain, everywhere, everywhere. Yeah. And then you could just travel, and you're traveling with other people that are around your age, and you're traveling around the world. That's one option. Another option for a gap year. I'm trying to think of any others. Do you know any other options, Kiki?
I think. Well, I mean, I think the one most commonly, I think, like yeah, internships. I think you mentioned just going to work, or I feel like a gap year. It can be a year, it can be less, it could be longer. It's just a gap in between you if you're thinking about going
Hmm.
to college. Maybe you're just going because maybe you're just not going to school yet because you want to save up some money. That could be something, but level two. But I just think a point you made before, Kemi, was I think you mentioned kind of like maturity level. I run into students a lot that maybe started at a 4 year school and they're now coming to community college. And I'm just
Mm,
always curious. I'm like, what happened? Like what made you want to come? And they, honestly will say, I was doing XYZ.
yep.
I wasn't really into my studies or I wasn't making school a priority. We're not saying that when you go to school, like we had a lot of fun in college. Like our friends' fun was different than a lot of people's fun,
Hmm.
but it was like movie nights. And I'm like, I'm not even lying. I'm trying to sound like we weren't out. Like I'm not trying to make up stuff, but we literally like have movie nights. We'd like go out to like fine dining on college student, money. Um,
When she
we
means
had
fine
like
dining, she means Olive Garden. Okay.
yeah. Oh, we went to Kabuto before. We went to Kabuto. We did Japanese food.
Yeah, that one time. Yeah.
Cheesecake Factory. But I'm saying like as a college, we had a lot of friends. We were out there like everybody's birthday was celebrated at some point.
Yeah.
So we weren't being cheap, is what I should say.
Right.
We were out there spending money, but like we were having fun. Yes, but we were involved in organizations, and of course, we were
Yeah.
students. But I see a lot of students who, I mean, I'll just be honest, they're like, oh, I was going to a lot of parties and
Yep.
I was doing nefarious things. Is that the right word? I'm going to say that. Look it up if you don't
Basically,
know what
you
it is.
came to college for the wrong idea. This
Exactly. That's
you're
exactly
supposed
what
to
it
go to
is.
class. It's essentially
That's,
like
yes.
the rest of there's clubs and organizations, that's the fluff. But essentially you're supposed to go to class. That's the number one priority. Why are you wasting your
Hmm.
money? Um,
Exactly.
and I know two people that happened to, and they two people that failed out essentially.
Mm.
And
That's expensive.
that's expensive. Like your freshman year and you're failing out, like you have to foot that bill. I mean, your parent. I mean, if your parents sign that loan, but they ain't gonna be happy. You know what I mean?
Right. Yeah.
And that's something for parents and students to understand. If you're not doing well academically, your school can kick you out. Like you can either
True.
if you score really low, like if you have like an F or two Fs, they might say, yeah, you're not going to spring semester. If let's say you're getting all C's or something like that, then they may say, okay, maybe we'll allow you to go on academic probation. But that's for each institution. It's all different.
Hmm.
So it's not just a free for all. They can't just, yeah, you're paying a lot of money, but they're not going to give your child a degree if they're getting Fs, you know?
Right. But also if you on that same vein, if you are getting financial aid and your grades are not good, you could lose financial aid money or you
Yeah.
could lose your scholarship. Or
Yup.
maybe you're a student athlete and you're out there acting buck wild, you can lose your whole entire scholarship or your place on the team.
Yeah.
So a lot of things to think about. Like if you as a student know yourself and you're or as a parent know your child, your student, your teenager, and you know like that maturity level is not there yet.
Yeah.
Because it really is a big thing to like be 18, 17, 18 and go off to college. Like
Right.
if you're going, maybe you're commuting, that's one thing. You're still under your parents' roof or you're under your guardian's roof.
Right.
But if you're going, like Kemi came from New England all the way to North Carolina, and like she said, that's
Mhm.
a plane ride away at 18, 17, 18. That's a huge step. And for some people, for a lot of people, it's a huge reality check of like, okay, I have to grow up.
Mhm.
I'm an adult. In some ways, you're an adult, but others, it's like you still have that high school mentality that's not going to get you through college.
Mhm.
So yeah, it's just a lot to think about. Things you want to think about now. That's why we're
Yeah.
saying like, look at these schools, look at distance and look at what they offer, like support wise, look
Yeah.
at programs they have, try and talk if you can talk to students. Like Kemi said when she went to Elon, she met Jerry and her
Yep.
mom, asked them questions, stuff like that. Like really get to know like what the college environment is like. Don't ask like about the party environment. Don't ask about things like that. Don't
Right.
really, I mean, Greek life may be important to a lot of people, but that's not your main thing.
Mhm.
Again, as we've mentioned, it is a huge investment. So you want to make sure you're going somewhere that you are ready to invest in. So
Mhm.
that's why we're offering alternatives to going to the traditional route. And there's nothing wrong with not going that
Exactly.
traditional route, especially in 2021. The amount of people who are entrepreneurs
Right.
out here who don't have degrees,
Right.
and we're not promoting don't get a degree. It's really we're saying every individual is going to have a different pathway.
Mhm.
But I have a lot of students that are like, I want to be a business major, and I'm like, okay, how come? I'm just curious. Like, I was asked, and they're
Right.
like, okay, I want to run my own media company. I'm like, okay, do you know how to do media? Do you know how to do promotion and marketing? And they're like, no. I'm like, well, shouldn't you like be focusing on learning that part of it? The business part, like honestly, it can come like last. Like if you like you have to know what the craft is, though. Like you have to know the product to be
Mhm.
able to market to sell that product. The business part, you can build a team. You can build somebody that does financing and your marketing. But if you don't know how to do the media, or if you want to be a designer, or you want to be interior designer, if you don't know how to do that, then how is that benefiting you to get a business degree?
Mhm.
Learn the learn the skills needed to run the actual business as opposed to.
From the inside out, understand how that
Yeah,
works.
thank
Yeah.
you. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. No, for sure. For sure. No, I totally agree with that. Because I mean, there are some people out there that they'll get a business degree and maybe they don't. For example, if someone has a business degree And then they're like, oh, I'm going to own a car wash. They don't know anything about a car wash. They may hire someone else underneath them to manage it. Yeah, that's
Yeah.
cool. But
Yeah.
if you want to, you could also be the manager if you knew the inside out of what you're creating and save some
Exactly.
more money too.
Mhm.
So, and then, later on in life, have a manager, you retire off that money. But
Exactly.
so it is good to know the insides of things. And then just kind of going back again, like when it comes to like students, know yourself, know what your interests are, know if a 4-year school is for you, know if sitting in an hour and a half lecture, if you don't like that in college, if you don't like that in high school, that's not going to be a correct fit for you, look for something else. Some people are hands-on people. So some people want to be in a vocational school. Well, they'll be talking a little bit in a lecture, but then they'll also be in a lab putting their hands to work. And that's how
Right.
some people learn that way.
Mhm.
And also kind of to sober it up a little bit more. And even for parents, like I know parents want their best interest for their children at hand. So some are just like, just go to college, figure it out. It's okay to postpone and wait or have them doing something else till they have that aha moment to pursue whatever career that's next for them. So it's okay. Don't compare yourself to your neighbor. Like look at you and your own path. Don't compare
Right.
yourself to others. You don't want to go down that financial path. You don't.
Amen.
Amen.
That's today's sermon on other college alternatives. No, but no, but it's true. I think I think what we've said or what we've hoped you gained from this the whole time and what Kimmy just said and just we're summing it up to close it.
Mhm.
Yeah, just look into like know yourself, look into all of your options. If you know you have this career in mind, look at other ways you can get to that career
Mhm.
because there are many ways these days. Now, if you want to be a doctor, that's pretty straightforward.
Yeah.
But yeah, there's a lot of careers out there that don't require a lot of time, a lot of schooling, and you can still live a really viable life. So
Mhm.
hopefully that's been helpful to everyone. Did you have
Yeah.
anything else that you wanted to tell me?
Well, I just wanted to mention this is the last episode of our series of where to begin. So
Oh, gracious, that was fast.
I know that was fast,
No,
right? So that was our first series of what was the name of the series? Of where to begin. This whole series
I
is
don't know.
I know we've been recording so much, but this first series was where to begin, and essentially we have wrapped that up. Our next series is going to take a deeper dive into other options. So we'll actually have episodes specifically focused on community college, specifically focused on apprenticeships and money, specifically focused on military benefits. So stay tuned for that one. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Thank you all so much for joining us this episode and for this series. Hopefully, it's been really beneficial and helpful. Thanks for joining us.
Bye, guys. See you in the next one. Thank you, everyone, for tuning in and listening to the latest episode of Your Advisors Will See You Now. Please make sure to follow us on all of our social media pages and check out our website. Take a look at the show notes below.
And please make sure to subscribe and share this podcast. Also, show us some love and please leave a 5-star review. Catch you next time.
See ya.